Welcome back to part 2 of the Fiery Dragon. I got the boiler room shanty pulled up here in front of the garage. Let me show you everything I got to do to it. First thing I got to do is clean all of this junk out so I can actually get in there and work. Then I'm gonna replace the roof on both sides because I can see daylight over here too. And see this rust on these walls? I'm gonna have to throw some paint on that. This probably won't last another year or two, and I'll have to get a new building or just build a block building. But that rust, I don't really know what's caused it. I've been fooling with these stoves for 15 years. I've never seen them do this to the inside of one or to the stovepipe. I think what did this is, remember I said in the first video that that old stove had a bunch of leaks? Well, this is, when I air to water heat exchanger, and I run antifreeze in it because, if I get sick and can't fool with it and it shuts off, it freezes and busts everything, so I run antifreeze in it. Well, this stove has always smoked just a little bit, white smoke. It actually looked like steam. It would, go up and just disappear real quick like steam would. And I always figured that it was either boiling or burning the antifreeze, and I think that's what did this rust. Because like I said, I've never seen it in the 15 years I've been fooling with these stoves. So I'm going to throw some paint on that. And then that is a paint can. That was my reservoir for the coolant. I couldn't find a tank that had 3/4 inch inlet and outlet. So I just decided to make one out of a paint can. If I can't find one or make one, I guess I'll keep using that one. The electrical has got to be put in a box on the wall. And well, you can't really see it, but I just got wires running everywhere. And right here, these were the wires running over here to the burner, laying on the floor. That's how they work. But it's got to be gotten up off the floor. Of course, this floor is oil soaked. I want to clean it pretty good, scrape all this gunk and stuff up. And I might try to find a big pan like goes under a wood stove and put it under this heat exchanger, because it will leak a little bit of oil sometimes. I've got a car oil filter over there, and there's a pump in there too, the circulating pump. Those need to be gotten off the floor. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do there next. And as far as the outside goes, it's got green on it, so I'm going to spray it down with some Clorox, get it, presentable anyway. And that's about all I can think of right now that I got to do. So let me get busy working on this thing, getting it in some kind of shape. By the way, that old truck there, that's going to be in a future episode, hopefully by next spring. That right there, hopefully by next spring we'll be back on the road too. That'd be a pain if you had to roof a whole house with just them. This tin was left over from when I redid the roof on my house probably 12, 13 years ago. People make fun of me because I rarely throw anything away. You never know when you may be able to use it on something else. So, to the people who make fun of me for keeping all this junk, ha, 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 ha. I run out of daylight, but I had to get it done because they're calling for rain next few days. So maybe this will protect my electronical stuff inside. I got to get a piece of ridge cap, and I only cut myself one time on the sheet metal. Got a little wind and rain going on today. I'm still going to work on it. So I guess now it's time to get this thing cleaned out so I can start painting them walls. I'll probably sand them down just a little bit, but I ain't too worried about it. Matter of fact, I'm probably going to use indoor latex paint because that's just what I've got on hand. Don't mind me, I'm just doing a little sanding. There, it's perfect. Danielson, paint the fence. Up, down, up, down, up, down. I decided to splurge and got the good stuff. Extreme all weather. Call me for any of your painting needs at 1-800-GET-LOST. Look at all the ladybugs I just found. That's a whole bunch. What do you call that? A flock? A herd? A gaggle? I don't know. I just wanted to show you all this expert paint job I just got done with. The rust, I don't know if you can, yeah, it's showing up on the camera. The rust is coming through the paint I just put on. I don't know why. Yes, that is a dirt daughter's nest that I painted over also. I missed the spot, dang it. So, I've been thinking. This boiler room shanty, it really is a shanty. It's falling apart. It's rusted and it's just, well, it's not worth putting a lot of time and money into it. So I think what I've decided is all I'm going to do is get this electrical in a box and get the wiring up off the floor. I'm not even going to run it in conduit. It's just not worth the time or money to do it. And, well, stuff like this, there's a reason I've got that hanging from a chain, is because these walls are so flimsy, I can't mount anything to the wall. For that box, I'm going to have to build a stand to put it on. So I think I'm just going to leave it like it is right now, other than the electrical. So when I get that done, I'll get the stove in right here and start hooking everything up. And it won't be too long before we can pull this thing over there and hopefully get it fired up. Well, there's the old girl waiting to go in to the building and get hooked up. I ain't ready yet. I've been looking for an electrical enclosure, and they really think they're made out of gold. I'm just not into paying an exorbitant amount of money for something that I know didn't cost a fraction of that to make. I ain't gonna do it. So I got to looking around and I found this giant cabinet out here about right here in this junk pile. So what I'm going to do, it's 20 inches wide. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut 10 inches off one end, 10 inches off the other end, and here's why. See these studs right here? That's to mount a plate here. A mounting plate is what it's called. That's what you screw your components to instead of screwing them to the back of the cabinet and having screws sticking out. Well, you mount them to that mounting plate. So that's why I'm going to take, 10 inches. I'll have those studs on either end, make a mounting plate out of what's left over, and make a door out of what's left over also. So let me get this cut up and welded up and get the plate made, get a door made, and then I'll be ready to start rewiring the little boiler room shanty. All right, I decided to go 25 long by 20 wide. There's my mounting plate to go on them studs. I hadn't cut the door yet. It's right there. I haven't cut it because I want to get this tacked together so I can get an accurate measurement. So let me get this tacked up and I'll be right back. I now have an electrical cabinet. Put me a piano hinge over here. Got me a little latch. Got my mounting plate mounted. So I think I'm gonna clean it up real good and then paint it because, you know, everything in the roller room shanty seems to rust. Then I think I'm going to throw some paint on that after I clean it up. So let me get that done. It's a brisk yet sunny day here in Tennessee. About 39 degrees. That's okay. We're still going to work on the fiery dragon. As you can see, I wasted my time painting these walls because the rust is coming right back through. Oh well. These two little channels right here are how I'm going to mount the electrical box. I said I wasn't going to mount anything to the walls, but I am. So what I did, these channels are for the floor of this building. See, if you save stuff, you can use it later. Anyway, I just used self-tapping screws down both sides. I think it'll be strong enough to hold that box. It's not that heavy, but I guess we'll find out eventually. So I'm gonna get the box mounted here in a little bit, and then I can start rewiring everything. All right, I got the box mounted. Look how shiny that is. You can see me in it like a mirror. Anyway, I used 4 big drill screws on either side to mount it to those 2 channels I put up earlier. Now all I gotta do is get this stuff here transferred up to here. It shouldn't be that hard to do. It's supposed to get in the teens tonight, and it would be nice if I could get it running tonight, but that's not going to happen. But hopefully I can get it up and running tomorrow sometime, and then maybe I can get some video of it actually running in cold weather and show you how well it performs. Alright, I got everything mounted in here except for these 2 relays. They're going to be changed out pretty soon. That's just something I had to do at the time because that's what I had, and I'm going to change them out eventually, and they'll be mounted to the box somewhere. But anyway, I got everything mounted. I'm going to pretty these wires up. I got to get these wires through the bottom, these wires through the bottom. Then once I get the heater in, I can start wiring it up. Then I hook the hoses up over there, and we're going to be pretty close to run this thing. It may actually run tomorrow, fingers crossed. It's a balmy 20 degrees here in Tennessee today. We got 3 or 4 inches of snow. It's still coming down. But you know what? Still going to work on the fire dragon. Let me show you what I got done yesterday. Actually, let me show you the most important thing right now. That heater. It's getting warm in here. I'm going to probably have to take my coat off. Of course, I got my work lights in here so I can see. But anyway, I got these 2 switches mounted in the front of the door. I got one of them wired up. I got this temperature sensor wired up, and it goes over here and lets me know what the water temperature is. And then those wires that were running across the floor, they come up here, let's see, and run across the ceiling, and they drop down to the burner. I got like 6 more sets to do here. Then I've got to mount, I got 3 of these temperature controllers. They're going to be mounted here on the bottom of the door. And that's about it, I think. This wiring, or rewiring, has taken a lot more time than I thought it would. Alright, I got the 3 holes cut from my temperature sensor. That's what it looks like. Messed up my pretty paint job on the back with the jigsaw. Now, I got to make some kind of washer for this, so they won't tighten up. Then when I do that, I guess I'll wire that other switch up, and I'll start wiring these up, and then run the rest of the wires over here to the burner, and the wiring will be done. Well, I've ran into an issue wiring up this second push button up here. I've got a wire, number 4 to be exact, that was not hooked to anything. It's come off of what it was hooked on. I think it was on this relay here. Ain't no print on this because I wired it. Now I did, when did I do this? 8, 9 years ago? Now I did the hard parts, which is this I'm working on now. I had to draw it out on paper. I don't know if I still got that or not. If I do, it'll be in a notebook somewhere. So I may have to go in the house and see if I can find that drawing. I don't know if I'm gonna figure out where that goes. My brain don't work like it did 8 years ago. This fool fly has been flying around in here all day long, worrying the crap out of me. It's 20 degrees outside. You ain't supposed to be alive, little buddy. Well, I think I'm pretty much done with the wiring. I got a couple of small things left to do, but other than that, it's wired up. So I'm fixing to plug it in, see if we got any booms or sparks. If not, then we're gonna be pretty good, I think. All right, here we go. Oh, my temp sensors are on. That one is blinking because I don't have the sensor hooked up yet. That's part of the small stuff I still got to do. Let me open it up, show you. Not my prettiest work, but it's gonna have to do. See my two switches and buttons up there. There's the back side of the temperature controllers. And then, of course, it comes out the bottom, goes up the wall, across the ceiling, and drops down to the burner right there. Now, let me show you. This is the emergency stop. If it's pushed in, nothing's going to work except for the temperature controllers. Push it, that arms it basically. I turned that on and I heard something sizzling. I thought it was something on fire or arcing or sparking. It's that pump right there, the circulating pump was running. Scared me to death. Anyway, that's e-stop. Pull it on and it arms everything, turns the power on to the PLC, and obviously the pump comes on. Like I said, the temperature controllers, they're on as soon as I plug it in. Now this green button up here is the start button. When you push it, see those inputs come on the PLC? That tells it that it's ready to go, and the only thing it needs is a call from a thermostat, and everything will start coming on and running. I'll show you more about all the controls after I get it running, but for now I'm pretty happy with it. I guess next I got my preheater tank I got to put in, wire up, and I'm pretty sure this is about where the stove is going to go. I painted it, by the way. How you like that nice black paint? Anyway, I'm pretty sure this is where it's going to go. So I got to lag it to the floor, and I got to hook all my hoses up over there, fill it up with antifreeze. I can't fill it up though until I get it over there and get it hooked up to the indoor coil. But we're getting a little closer all the time to getting this thing running. And I did find where wire number 4 goes after a lot of head scratching and wire tracing. It was in an odd spot. It should have been up here on the terminal strip. I don't know why I put it down here, but it's up here now. One of these days, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna draw a printout for this, so you know, if I have to troubleshoot it one day, it'll be a little bit easier. Well, I think I'm ready to move it to the other side of the house. I got my hoses hooked up back here on the back. I got my siphon tank wired up and hooked up, sitting on the concrete block. All the temperature sensors are working now, so I believe it's ready. So I'm gonna hook it up to the truck and pull it on over, I believe. Well, I've got it in place, got the extension cord run to it. I got it jacked up on this corner right here to level it up. I'm pretty sure I hurt my back picking the thing up off the bumper. And it's getting dark also. And it's supposed to rain all night tonight, and tomorrow I'm supposed to get 1 to 2 inches of rain. So I'm gonna rest my back for the next day or so. And hopefully we can get out here, get this thing the rest of the way hooked up, and get it running. So I'll see y'all in a day or two. It's 30 degrees this morning. Supposed to get up around 40 this afternoon. And then tonight, supposed to drop back down into the 20s. So this will be a pretty good day to check out the Fire Dragon if I can get it running. I got a few more things I got to do, and I'm going to show you what I got to do. All right, this is what's left before we can get this thing running. I got to cut a hole in that wall right there for the exhaust. I've got to run the thermostat wire into the house, get everything hooked up for it. We've got to fill it up with antifreeze, but before I do that, I've got to hook the hoses up outside, and I'll show you that. And if I hit my head on that light one more time, I'm probably going to rip it down. Here's where I got to hook up the two lines for the indoor coil, and there's the hoses right there that I got to hook up. So let me get all that stuff done, and I don't know, an hour or two, we may be firing this thing up. Lowe's didn't have a rain cap for the boiler room shanty, so I'm on Amazon looking for one, and I come across that right there. It's called a shanty cap. What's even funnier is I had that exact same one on it last time. What I thought was going to take a couple hours, it's taken about 6 hours, but it's ready to run. Well, I gotta wait on that tank there to heat up. So while it's heating up, I'm gonna walk you through the whole system. I'm gonna start right here where I put the oil in. That tank holds about, I don't know, 25 gallons. It's an old air tank, but it is. And I've got 2.5 gallon jugs, got 4 or 5 of them. I'll put the oil in, take that off, put a funnel in it. That's how I'll get it in there. Eventually I'm gonna have some kind of pump to pump it from my totes to here, but for now this will do. That 25 gallons will last 4 or 5 days, maybe a little longer. Just depends on the temperature outside. All right, I got pressure on this tank, about 10 pounds. It pushes it through this line. I got the car filter, yes it is Fram, and it goes on around there up to this tank right here. This is what I call my siphon tank. It's an ammo can is what it is. Let me open it up, show you. It's got a float valve right there. It's got a heater right over here. These are the lines going to the heater. I can't remember if it's a 250 watt or a 500 watt, but anyway, this temperature controller right here on the left is what's controlling it. You can see it's at 46 degrees. It needs to get up to about, I think I got it set on 120 right now. So we gotta wait on that. Also, I've got a drain on the bottom of the ammo can because this thing sweats from the heat, and it'll build up quite a bit of water in the bottom of that, so I have to drain that off once a week or so. This right here is the out. This is going up to the nozzle in the burner up here. Well, I got a valve right here on it. The reason I got that valve is there's a preheater block inside here. I'm not going to show you, it's too aggravating to tear it apart. But there's a preheater block right before the nozzle. And when this thing shuts off, it gets satisfied, it shuts off, that oil wants to drain back into that tank, and that valve keeps that from happening. That way, there's oil in that preheater block, and it's ready to go when it gets a call for heat. So that's the path that the oil takes. All right, let me tell you about this burner real quick. I'm not going to tear it apart because it's too aggravating to do that. I'll just tell you what I did to modify it. It is a Beckett, I think it's a Model A, AF. Use fuel oil in it. Of course, I can't use that nozzle. It's a pressure system. I can't use that for used oil. So you have to modify it. You buy a nozzle holder, and the nozzle goes in one end. You got air and oil goes in the other end. Well, here's where my siphon air comes in. That's my valve to turn it on and off. Of course, it's got a line that runs here, goes in the side of the burner. Then I've already told you the oil comes up through here, goes inside the burner. And then there is an aluminum block that I made. It's got a heater in it, like a 100-watt heater. This middle temperature controller controls it. You gotta have it to heat the oil up so it'll light off the spark plug. Speaking of spark plugs, this is the ignition coil, and there's two prongs out there right in front of the nozzle, and when it gets a call for heat, It'll turn this ignition coil on and it'll spark. I think I've got it set for 30 or 45 seconds. In case the flame is having a little trouble, it'll keep sparking and keep it going until it establishes a good flame. Now let me show you the water. There's my circulating pump right there. This line is coming from this awesome reservoir tank. It's leaking, by the way. I won't have to do something about that, build a new one. Anyway, it comes from this tank down to that pump, across here, comes in the bottom T there to the bottom two circuits on them headers. It comes out these two top headers and goes down to that T, and it goes out the building to the coil in the ductwork at the unit. Let me go show you that. There's lines coming out of the building. They go around here into this coil right here. What this is, let me get this off. What that is an old evap coil of an air conditioner. I built the case around it, insulated it, and of course I had to make headers for it. But it goes in one, out the other. Air blows across it, takes the heat with it. Now the way I control the indoor fan is inside here. I'm not going to show you, going to feel like taking the panel off, but it's just another temperature controller like what's inside the building, and I've got it set to come on at, I want to say, like 120 degree water temperature, and then once it is satisfied and the water quits pumping, then it'll, the water temperature will drop and it'll cut off at 5 or 10 degrees below that. This valve right here that's in line with the headers, top headers, that is to bleed the air out of the system when I fill it up, and it helps a lot. Without that, it would take 15-20 minutes to get this thing bled and filled. Now it takes maybe 5 minutes. I just got the line running looped over here to the reservoir. This valve right here at the bottom of the headers, that's to drain the system in case I need to tear it apart. That way I can save the antifreeze and won't have to keep buying antifreeze, because that stuff ain't cheap. All my air is run across the yard in this hose and goes to the garage, to the compressor in there. Eventually I'm gonna get a small compressor to put in here to keep. Matter of fact, that tank there used to be on the compressor that was in here to run this thing, but I needed the tank more than I needed air compressor, so there it sits in the corner now. Now let's talk about the controls. I don't know if you can see that little wire. That's the thermostat wire running around the back of the house into the back bedroom, and I've got that thermostat sitting right next to my other one. Alright, there's the brain of the whole operation. To me, that was probably about as fun as anything on this project, was learning how to program PLCs a few years ago. I found a guy on YouTube that he explains it, where a 5-year-old can understand it. It's, I don't know, 8 or 10 video series. If I think about it, I'll post it in the description, a link to those videos, because it's really good. Anyway, that's the brains of the operation. It's got inputs and outputs. The thermostat wire comes in over there, and I done forgot which input is which. I'd have to look at the program. I'm not a very good storyteller or explainer, but I'm gonna do my best to explain how I've got this thing wired up and how it operates. PLC has inputs and outputs. This thing needs a call from a thermostat. That would be an input to the PLC. There's a temperature sensor right there, and it serves two purposes. One, to let me know what the temperature is of the water running through the system. Two, it is an over temp sensor. If this thing gets close to boiling the water, I want it to shut it off. I don't want it boiling water. I don't want it making steam. That is ran by this temperature controller on the right. Normally it will be given an input to the PLC. If the temperature gets above 194 degrees, it will lose that input and it will shut everything down. Why 194 degrees? Well, that's as high as that temperature controller will go. Also, here's why I have it given an input instead of not giving an input. If that temperature controller loses power and I don't know it, well, this thing's running without this over temp sensor. I don't want that. So if that temperature controller quits working, loses power, whatever, well, it'll lose the input and that'll shut everything down. Also, right here is a flow sensor. If my water pump quits or I get a hole and I lose water, that right there will tell the PLC, hey, we're not flowing water, shut it down. That's another input to the PLC. Another input is the flame sensor inside of this burner here. I think I've got it set to like 5 seconds. If it doesn't see a flame, shuts everything down. I could probably go a little longer, and I may do it. It just depends on how well it runs. But if it doesn't see a flame, or if it loses flame, it'll lose input, shut everything down. Also, on that flame sensor, I've got the PLC basically running a check on it to make sure that it ain't shorted out when the burner ain't running. And here's why. Because if that flame sensor gets shorted out and then the burner gets a call for heat, everything starts up but it doesn't light, but it thinks it's lit because of that flame sensor is shorted out, well, this sucker will sit here and spray oil in this heater all day long, you know. And I got 25 gallons of oil over here, and that's a lot of oil. But here's another problem with that. Inside that burner tube and inside the end of this burner also, soot builds up and a little bit of oil will drip out of that nozzle all the time. That's just the way it is. And that will get in the end of the burner and the burner tube, and that'll sit there and burn for a little while, causing that flame sensor to see the flame and give an input. So I give it, I think it's 2 minutes for that little flame to burn out. Then it starts checking that flame sensor. If it gets a signal from the flame sensor when there's no call for heat and the burner is supposed to be off, then it'll shut everything down. When I set the building up here, you know, I've got a jack in that corner over there. The reason for that is I want that burner tube going downhill. That way the oil dripping out of that burner won't accumulate in the end of the burner. It'll run on down the burner tube and hopefully won't set off that flame sensor when it's not supposed to be. But I have a lot of trouble out of that. It gives me a lot of trouble. That's usually what kicks this thing out, is that flame sensor sees that flame when it shouldn't. Here's 2 more inputs going to the PLC. That's E-stop. I got to label all this stuff, by the way. Anyway, push this in and it stops everything. You have to have it pulled out, and that sends power to the PLC. And then this is a start button. You have to push it to basically arm it. If this light ain't on, then it's not armed. It's kicked out, or I haven't pushed it yet. I've tried to think of every safety incident I can think of to make sure this thing doesn't go crazy. I'm sure I have missed something, but I think I've got it pretty safetied up. I think that pretty much covers all the inputs. Let me go through these temperature switches again. That one is the tank over there, the ammo can for the siphon. That is for the heater block in the burner right before the nozzle. That is the over temp, or it also tells me the water temperature going through the system when it's running. All right, I'm going to run you through everything it needs to see, everything that needs to happen for this thing to run. Like I said, I got to pull the E-stop out, push the start. Then if it gets a call for heat from the thermostat, it'll send the signal to the PLC, and that starts the chain reaction. It has to have no signal from the over temp sensor. Then once the PLC is satisfied, it opens this valve, it opens this valve, it turns this blower motor on. And I think it's got 5 seconds to light. If it doesn't light in 5 seconds, it shuts down. That is done by the flame sensor in here. Okay, once it does that, gets called for heat and turns all these valves and everything on, it'll also turn the circulating pump on, which will turn the flow sensor on. If the flow sensor isn't sending a signal to the PLC, it'll shut it down. But I give it like 3 to 5 seconds for it to get the water flowing before it'll shut it down. If all of that is satisfied, then this thing should start and keep on running until the thermostat's satisfied, it'll lose that input on the PLC and it'll shut it down. Another thing I forgot to tell you was when it's finally satisfied and the thermostat kicks it off, that pump is programmed to run, I think, like 2 minutes after. That's because I don't want to just shut it down and have that water, maybe boil. It gives it time to cool off a little bit before it shuts off. Now this ammo can over here is giving me trouble. Let me tell you about it. I'm gonna have to do some work on it. Well, first of all, it has melted that float, this plastic, because the oil got too hot. Here's why it got too hot. This temperature sensor is just on this elbow right here. Well, it needs to be stuck in there in the oil to actually measure oil temperature. And since it's not doing that, it gets too hot and it melted that float. So I've got to find a temperature sensor that'll work with that controller that I can stick inside there and measure the oil temperature. And because of that temperature sensor being where it's at, I want that oil at about 120 degrees, but I've got this temperature controller set at about 80 because it's not reading the actual temperature of the oil, and that's something I've got to get fixed pretty quick. The second thing is this ammo box has to be sealed because there's 10 pounds of pressure on that tank pushing the oil to this one. If that float valve hangs open, what's going to happen? All that oil is going to run down in this floor. Can't have that. So it has to be sealed. And that's it's got that latch right there that seals it. Alright. Well, this line right here is the overflow line, and it goes to a tank outside. This 30-gallon tank is the overflow tank. In case the float valve sticks, it'll push that oil in this tank here instead of on the floor. Well, I had an issue with this ammo can a couple of years ago when I first started running. I didn't get to run this setup but just a few weeks, and I didn't really get to test it out and all that. But the issue was that this can was getting pressurized some kind of way. I don't know how, but you can't do that. That would be like the old system that I had, a pressurized system, and you do that on heated oil and it's really going to push way too much oil through the burner and it's going to roll some coal big time. So I've got to figure out why it's still getting pressurized even with that overflow / vent line over there. What I think may be going on is it's pushing a little oil in here and it's sort of acting like a stopper and making this pressurized just a little bit and then making it smoke. So what I think I'm going to do is make this hole a lot bigger and then have it gravity feed to that tank outside. That way I don't have to worry about this line getting stopped up with anything, and I hope that'll take care of that problem there. I can't take credit for this ammo can design. I found it online 2 or 3 years ago, and I don't remember the guy's name or the website, but I think he sells kits, but that's where I got the idea for this from. Hopefully I've explained it good enough where you can understand what all it takes to make it operate. But if you have any questions about it, feel free to leave me a comment and I'll try to answer it if I can. I think we're heated up over there in that tank, and I think it's time to give it a try and see what it'll do. It probably won't start the first time or two because there's a preheater block in here and it's got to get oil sucked up in that block and get it heated up a little bit. So it may kick out a time or two before it even tries the light, but here we go. I got the thermostat on in the house. E-stop is off. Start. And I forgot something. I've got full shop air going to that siphon nozzle. It's supposed to have a regulator on it. Let me go find a regulator and put that on there. Alright, I forgot that if it ever kicks out, you have to hit the e-stop. It's sort of like a reset, I guess. Turn it back off, hit start. I don't hear any flame. I may have to open it up and see what's going on. Alright, I got the burner door open. Let's see what's going on with it. Definitely not getting any oil. Well, just a little bit, but it's not lighting. Well, she's running. I don't know exactly what the problem was. I turned these two temperatures up. I really cranked that one up. It was on 120. I went to 180. She lit. So it's running right now. And it's going to smoke because there's a lot of oil inside of that burner tube right now. I hear something sizzling now. I don't know if it's that oil or water, because my main concern is that water that's wrapped around that burner tube. It very well may boil and do it real quick. So I'll just have to wait and see what happens there. But as you can see, my water temperature is already up to 100 degrees. She's rolling a little smoke right now, but I expected to with all that oil in the burner tube right now. I don't know if you can see smoke rolling out of the building, but it's rolling pretty good. I'm gonna let it run for a little while and burn all that oil out and see what happens. Been running 5 minutes. Already 120 degree temperature. It's still doing all that crackling and popping. Let's see if you can hear it. I'm hoping it's just the oil boiling and not water. I guess we'll find out eventually. But this is a non-pressurized system, so I'm not worried about it blowing up, you know, building steam and blowing up. It may blow some steam out, but it's not going to blow up. 10 minutes and we're at 143 degrees. And I don't know if I put too much water in the system or if it's actually boiling it and pushing it out. But I got some issues right now. The stove is still popping and carrying on over here. I don't know if it's oil or if it's boiling the water. I guess I'll find out eventually. All right, it jumped 10 degrees here in just, seconds. And then that started boiling over. And right before all that, I heard this popping going on over here. So it is boiling the water. That coil around the burner tube, I was afraid that was going to happen. So I don't know what I'm going to do at this point. Hear that? That's it boiling the water in that coil around the burner tube. I don't know what I'm going to do. I just shut it off. I forgot to tell you too, another safety measure. If it does get shut down, either due to no water flow, over temp, or if it loses the flame sensor, I've got it set for that pump to run 10 or 15 minutes, I can't remember. That's in case it did over temp. I want it to keep circulating and cool the water down. So if you just shut the pump down with it, you know, at 180 degrees and it's boiling the water, well, it's going to blow something, a hose or something. So I let it run 10 or 15 minutes and cool everything down. So I've been scratching my head on what I'm going to do about this thing boiling the water. Well, I've got to thinking, what if I put a smaller nozzle in it? I got a half-gallon-hour nozzle in it now. I can go to a 0.2, 0.3 gallon-hour nozzle, and it won't run as hot. Maybe it won't boil the water. Well, while I was standing here thinking, I just hit the e-stop button. It pulled it off. Circulating pump came on. I heard the flow switch click on. About 5 seconds later, it clicked off. I thought, well, that's kind of odd. So I took the top off the reservoir, and that water is barely moving. So I believe that's the issue, is I'm just not moving any water. So I got to figure out if it's the pump, if I'm stopped up somewhere, or what's going on. And I believe once I get that fixed, then we'll be up and running. And I hope anyway that it don't boil the water anymore. But it's 10 o'clock right now. I'm tired, I'm cold, so I'm going in the house. Bright and early tomorrow morning, I'll get out here and see if I can figure out what's going on with that. Well, I think I found the issue on the water flow problem. I completely forgot about this little strainer here. I've looked at it 100 times and never occurred to me that that could be it. But I think that might be it. Let me see what comes out of it. Yeah, I'd say it was topped up. At least it did its job. So let me clean all this up, get this strainer back on, and we'll give her another try. I believe she'll do a lot better this time. Strainer's back in place. I got it filled up Buddy, she's pumping some water now. All right, I think we're ready to give it another try. So cross your fingers that it lights easy and we don't boil any water. Oh, look at there, she's unlit. That's awesome. Water temperature is at 63 degrees. I'll be back in about 5 minutes to show you where it's at. 5 minutes, it's at 97 degrees. And it's also boiling the water. This is just hot. I don't know what I'm going to do about that. 10 minutes, we're at 127 degrees. She's still boiling away, but it's not pushing any water out. But I still don't like it boiling that water, so I'm going to have to come up with something different to go around that burner tube. I don't know what I'm going to do yet. On a positive note, it's not smoking at all, so that's good. It's been running 17, 18 minutes. We're at 130 degrees now. And the thing is pretty efficient. You know, I can lay my hand all over the exhaust and it's barely warm. The top of it's barely warm. Now when you come down the side, when you get close to that burner tube, that's pretty warm. So I'm still losing a lot of heat. That's where most of the heat is generated. So I've got to come up with something better to capture that heat around that burner tube. The only thing that comes to mind right now is either going with bigger tubing where to flow more water, and or putting a dedicated pump on just that loop where I can really move the water through there and capture more of the heat. Another thing I thought about is the way I've got that plumb, that coil going around the burner tube. It ain't ideal. You know, it's basically tees off from the other tube and it may not be getting any flow. So I might try to hook up a pump dedicated just for that circuit and see what that does. But I'm afraid it may fight the other pump. I don't know. I'm not an engineer by any means. I'm just a redneck trying to build stuff. But let's go inside and see what kind of air temperature I'm getting out of the vents. We're getting about 100 degree air temp out of the vent. That's not bad, but I was hoping for more. That'll definitely heat the house. I believe if I capture more heat from that burner tube, that I can get that up to 110 plus degrees, and I'll be very happy with that. So I got to do some thinking and engineering before I go any further. It's been running about 25 minutes. It's brought the house temperature up about 3 degrees. You got to remember, it's 44 degrees outside. It had to heat that water up from 45 degrees up to 130 while it's circulating and having heat removed. So that's not too bad. I was hoping for better, but it is still much better than that heat pump with the auxiliary kicking in all the time. I guarantee you it'll be cheaper. Even if the Fire Dragon ran all the time, it would still be cheaper than that heat pump. This thing has been shut off for 20-25 minutes and it is still boiling that water. I hear it bubble and pop every once in a while. You can see that discoloration there at the corner of that door, and you can also see it on the back here. Well, that's because I'm still losing a bunch of heat right here at the end of this burner tube, and I guess I could probably put a coil here on the outside, catch some of that heat, and I may do that. But my main goal right now is to figure out what I'm going to do about this boiling this water. She just kicked on again while I was walking across the yard. Let's go in here and see what's going on. Temperature's dropping, which is going to do that until it gets circulated and gets stabilized. So let's see what it does in 5 minutes. Been running 5 minutes. We're at 129 degrees, and as you can hear, it's popping and carrying on, boiling that water still. Let's see how long this cycle runs before it kicks out. It ran 8 minutes, that cycle, and I'm pretty pleased with that. That's not bad. I know it's only ran through a couple of cycles, but let's open it up and just see what it looks like. Well, it's not dirty at all. You got a little white going on down here. That's just what it puts off. Sometimes it'll be a tan color, and then sometimes it'll be black if it's running rich. But these right here are what's causing my issue, and I got to figure out what I'm going to do about them. I've got a kilowatt meter on the extension cord going to the boiler room. Yes, it's upside down because somebody don't know how to install plugs. Anyway, in an hour and a half, it has used 1.06 kilowatts. In other words, it's less than 10 cents here where I live. That's not bad. But that's just on the boiler room stuff. That doesn't include the indoor fan. I gotta find some kind of way to measure how much energy it's using so I'll know exactly what I'm using. Well, it's been about 24 hours since we first fired it up. It shut down sometime last night, most likely due to that flame sensor. I don't know what to do about it other than give it a little more time before it starts checking it. Also, it boiled a bunch of water out onto the floor in the last hour or two, so that means it really got that water boiling, and that's got to be fixed immediately. So it's looking like there's going to be a part 3 of the House Fiery Dragon where I show you how I try to remedy that problem. So I appreciate you watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Maybe you learned something. I know I have. Please like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and until next time, go do something.